查的话，我们是不定期的开展空中巡查的这个目的，主要是一个是这个是防御的一个重要手段之一，再一个就是对一些监控死角以外的一些区域的进行一个弥补。
铁头市公安要派人来保护你的无人机。疫情期间不要打牌啊！
You may notice some new drones in the sky. Clovis Police just launched a 90-day pilot program allowing the use of drones to respond to emergencies. It will reduce the chance officers come into contact with someone infected with COVID-19. Kaylee Hunt shows us how it works.
Clovis PD will use a drone launched from this rooftop to respond to emergency calls. Now, this drone will help officers get eyes from up above. Clovis Police will now be using this drone, along with others, to deploy as a first responder, thanks to their 90-day pilot program.
So the drones will be responding overhead and helping the officers out when they are on scene, or most likely they'll show up actually before the officers are on scene.
Lieutenant Jim Monroe with Clovis PD says these drones will change the way officers respond to calls. It will help them catch suspects and allow some emergency calls to be cleared without an officer's presence.
They'll be able to give overwatch, real-time instructions and real-time information to the units on the ground.
Their drone will start responding to emergency calls this week. allowing Clovis police officers more insight when responding to crimes, and an added level of protection when it comes to possible interaction with people infected with coronavirus.
So a pilot in our dispatch center is actually listening to the 911 call come in. When he determines that some type of emergency or potential emergency is taking place, he will activate the drone to launch. He's actually launching it from inside our dispatch center.
The drone will launch from this rooftop and give live updates from the sky using a zoom camera similar to a police helicopter.
The big thing is to understand that it's a response tool, and we're not going to be out there doing any type of proactive surveillance or anything like that. It'll just be responding to calls.
If the 90-day program is successful, Clovis Police says they will continue using this drone to respond to emergency calls. Kaylee Hunt, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
So we are starting our 90-day pilot program. It's called Drone as a First Responder. And what it is, we're going to launch drones from the roof of a city building, and they're going to respond to emergency calls within the city of Clovis. So it's going to be no different than what our police helicopters do, except it'll be a drone. Okay, we're here in the Clovis Police Department Dispatch Center, where we've also put our teleoperator for our Drone as a First Responder program. So what the drone or the teleoperator is doing is they're listening to 911 calls coming into the Clovis Police Department Dispatch Center. If the teleoperator feels that a drone would be beneficial overhead to help benefit the officers in the field or keep the public safe, they'll actually launch the drone right here using some software. The drone will go overhead to where it needs to respond to, and the teleoperator behind me will actually use the camera and the drone to give observations down to units in the field to help keep them safe. Now, at the same time, we also have a pilot in command who's on a rooftop where the drone launched from here in Clovis. As a safety factor, that pilot in command always has eyes on the drone, and if there's an airspace intrusion or some type of in-flight emergency, that pilot actually takes over control of the flight to make sure that we keep everything safe. We were looking at this program prior to the COVID emergency, but now that we're right in the thick of it, we thought it was going to be a good time to try and get it off the ground, start the pilot project. And so, as an example, the drone can be deployed to a reported call of somebody loitering, and the drone could see that the person's no longer there and cancel the officer so the officer doesn't have to respond. I know that once we get the drone up in the air, we're going to come up with a ton more use case scenarios that are directly related to this COVID emergency. But then, of course, once this is over, we plan to use the drone for emergency responses and continue the response. Yeah, so privacy concerns. So we have a policy here at the police department that we don't conduct any type of proactive surveillance or proactive flights. So these drones will only be launched from the rooftop if there's some type of emergency call to go along with it. So they will only be launched when the call comes in and officers are responding. Once the call is stabilized, there's no need for air support after that. The drones will return back to the rooftop, and they will stay here until the next call comes in. So we will only be responding to emergency calls or calls that can become emergencies, and our hope is that we help keep our officers in our community.